There we go. So if you decide that you don't want to be recorded and you join us, make sure that you have your video off, okay? So again, since I just started the video, we're going to talk about how to become resilient. I'm Beth Bedore, and I'm a physical therapist by trade. And now I have reinvented myself to be a speaker, an author, and a transformational life coach. And that is how I became resilient. I had kidney disease, and through the process, I learned how to be resilient. And I'm going to share that information with you today. My company is called The Creative Life by Design, and you can find me on the website. So, how to become resilient? Are you the type of person that just falls apart when there's obstacles in your life and you're struggling? Or are you the type of person that you're resilient and you can get through it with what looks like to other people maybe ease and grace? And inside you may feel like you're struggling, but you always have hope and those coping skills to get you to be resilient, no matter what comes across your life with your journey in life. So I'm not going to read a lot of this today, but there's a few things that I do want to read off. And one is a quote from Helen Keller. So this quote goes as, life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all. It faces us towards our challenges and beliefs, like you're being just a free spirit and you can be hopeful towards change, right? And it is your strength that gets you through and being undefeatable through the presence of fate. Does that resonate with you? She's such an important person that I have known about in my life. So I really like that quote. Now I'm going to talk about some definitions having to do with resilience. So two that I came up with was the ability and capability to withstand or recover quickly from difficulties or tough situations in life. So that's just one of them. The second one I came about that resonated with me was the ability to be able to have substance in your life and to be objective when you're going into a situation that might be a struggle or a challenge in your life. So there's one last thing that I'd like to say about resilience before we get down to the focus of resilience and the rest of the conversation. And that is that the meaning of resilience to me is the process and the outcome of successfully adapting to difficult and challenging life experiences and adjustments to external or internal demands. So that's to start with. So now we know what being resilient means. So what are some of the characteristics that people have that are resilient? So there is a doctor that has done some studies about this, and I want to talk about some of the things that he has come up with first. And his name is Dr. Ginsberg, and he is a child pediatrician and human development expert. And he has come up with 7 different traits. And those are competency, right? To be competent in something. Having confidence in yourself is so important if you're going to be resilient. Having some connections with yourself, with other people. Character, your character in nature. Contributions, coping, and controlling, feeling like you have power. So let's talk more about those things. So if you have good character, what does that mean about you? You have good values, good morals, you're integritous, right? If you have good coping skills, somebody who doesn't have good coping skills will not be resilient. But if you have good coping skills, you can overcome those obstacles by having those skills, those talents, those gifts to overcome these things that may feel like a challenging situation. And it's your perspective on what you consider to be challenging, adversity, a negative situation in life. Sometimes it's just our perspective on it. I like to say that, kind of gotten off topic here, but this is important information. I like to say that there are no negative or positive situations in life. It's a human experience that we're having. And then we determine, is this good or a bad situation? Is it going to negatively impact me? Or can I turn things around, learn from it, and have a positive outcome? So I'm not saying that you're not going to feel sad or that you won't have that immediate feeling, that emotion of, oh my God, here we go again, right? But if you can overcome that and experience it in a different way. So you have to have self assurance and self awareness, because if you're not aware of these things that are going on, either inside you or externally, how can you change your perspective, right? When I'm talking about changing your perspective, think about if you put a Coke bottle or a can of Coke in front of you and somebody on the opposite table side of you, and you're looking at that Coke bottle or that Coke can. What I'm seeing on this side, and I'm describing to the person over there, is going to look different from them sitting on that side, looking at the same object, the same circumstance, right? And they're going to tell me another version of that. So when I come up an obstacle, those kind of things, how can I spin it around so I can look and perceive the situation differently, right? Because there's always another way to look at things. That's why lawyers do so good, right? Because they can take one situation and have the people that are on the jury see things in so many different ways, right? So when you feel like you are empowered, that you have control over the situation and you have choices, generally, I always feel better when I feel empowered. I'm in control. And if I'm not in control of the circumstance, I'm in control of how I behave, how I react, or be proactive in the situation. So there are sometimes that things come about and you can see them coming. You know they're coming. Somebody told you that they're coming. So you can be proactive in the situation. That also helps you to be resilient, right? Rather than it's a surprise to you. And then you get bombarded with this information, either from inside your body or externally. And then you need to integrate that information and then determine how you're going to react, how you're going to think about it, what your perception is going to be. When you're feeling like you have confidence in yourself, that means so much when you're practicing being resilient. I always change my language. Even in that moment, I catch myself, and language is so important. So when I say practice compared to try, how does that feel to you? This is part of my resilience also. If I'm trying to be resilient, that means, well, I might be resilient or I might not. I'm giving myself the benefit that, well, maybe I just won't be resilient today. But if I say I'm practicing, researching, or experimenting, to me, that feels like a positive way of dealing with the situation rather than trying. Okay. So having confidence that, yes, you can get through this, whether you have faith, hope, you've been through so many other things in life that, yes, you know, you can get through this too. If you try to explain that to a teenager, right, that hasn't had a lot of self experiences and life experiences, they might not appreciate what you're saying. But when you become an adult and you've had all these experiences to build upon, you can go back and look at all the things that I have overcome when I thought I'd never get through them. And instead of putting your energy into being negative, then you can turn things around to be positive, right? So I hope you can hear me okay. I may have to move where I'm at, so be patient with me here. Let's see, connection. If you have a good support system and you connect with other people, you generally are more resilient. If you are feeling like you're alone in a situation and you have to overcome this thing all by yourself, you may feel lonely. So that's something that I want you to consider. Okay. I'm going to move from the situation and see if you can hear me a little bit better. So bear with me here for a second. Hang on here with me. Let's try this. Thank you for being patient with me for a moment. So some characteristics that come along with this, and I've already been talking about some of those things, is self-awareness, right? What other things can you think of that might make you resilient? What about being self-acceptance, right? We already talked a little bit about this. You have to accept where you are at that moment, or how are you going to move forward if you don't accept where you are, right? I just had my husband tell me that we're going to get a divorce. Now, I may know that from interactions, from how I'm feeling, from what other people have told me about my husband, right? And I'm not talking about gossip. I'm talking about life situations that they've seen about him outside of just dealing with me, right? So if my husband comes to me and says, we're going to get a divorce, I want to divorce you, I may have had some inklings, so I can be proactive. If I don't, it's going to be a shock to the system, right? So in that moment, I have to be aware that he's giving me this information, and then I either accept it or I don't. Hopefully, I accept what he's saying because that's his truth. He wants a divorce, right? So once I'm in acceptance, then I can choose what action I'm going to take from that point in time. And talking about resilience through things like this, or when people come to you maybe with an argument, I like to take a deep breath and not move into action right away. Because if I move into action right away after self acceptance, then I may say things or do things that aren't supportive of me and that other person. And yes, you can go back and say you're sorry, those kind of things. But it's always, it's out there in the world. It's spoken. So it's hard to pull that back and take it back. People can forgive you for your words, but they may not forget, right? So that's part of being resilient also when these situations come up, especially when someone else is giving you information. Now, let's say you fall and you break your leg, right? You're going downstairs and you fall and you break your leg. How are you going to be resilient in that situation? Well, first, you got to accept where you're at. You're sitting at the bottom of the steps to the front of your house. You just broke your leg because you heard the crack and you felt the pain, right? So in that moment, you got to accept where you are. You're at the bottom of the stairs. So when someone is resilient, they can say, okay, this is my life circumstance right now. Take a deep breath. They're feeling the pain. And then try to come to your right mind and think about what step you need to do next. You need to call 911, right? So if you're a person that falls apart after you fell, are you going to think about what is the next best step for me? Or are you going to hope that somebody just comes along and helps you out? Now, you may not have your phone. You may have to call out, right, for help. And hopefully someone is around unless you have fallen before and maybe you have a lifeline, those kind of things. But you have to think about, in order to be resilient and get through that, what are you going to do? And how are you going to think about that situation as you're going through it, rather than sitting at the bottom of the stairs and going, oh my God, I'm going to miss going to so and so. Or, oh my God, um, what about work? Those kind of things. So I want you to also think about, when you're going through those things and you're being resilient, you have to think about what's going on with inside your body and be able to process these things with inside your body, right? So if you are not connected to your gut and your intuition, it's going to be more challenging for you to be resilient, because our bodies give us so much information. So if you're not familiar with how to process what's going on inside your body, you can start with deep breathing belly breaths, Or if you come across a situation and you're feeling anxious, and before you feel like you can move into action and being resilient, take those deep belly breaths, and this will calm your nervous system down. So then you can take action and be resilient in that specific situation from all your skills, your talents, your gifts. Think about the things that you've done in the past when you come up with something that is a obstacle in your life. What have you done previously to be able to get through it and get through it so you're feeling like you're thriving instead of just surviving? And that's a big difference too, a discernment between what is surviving a situation and what is thriving, even though you have that situation. And with me, I learned so much about this, as I told in the beginning, that I had kidney disease and I had to go on dialysis, or I chose to go on dialysis and get a kidney transplant. So during that process, I decided, am I going to be resilient or am I going to fall into gloom, doom, drama, trauma? It was a choice. I decided I was going to be a victor in the situation rather than feeling like a victim because that felt so much better to me. I had hope, I had faith, I had good connections with people around me that supported me. And because of all these different things, I had resilience. And for me, that just felt so much better to take that power rather than feeling like a victim to that life circumstance. So I want you to put yourself in a situation that you've been in before and you think about what have you done in the past that might have been more of a negative expression of emotions, things that have been said, actions that you've taken, and then think about a situation that you've had in the past that you've had a good outcome, that you've had a good mindset, that your perceptions of things and that experience has been more positive, more hopeful. Maybe you are a very religious person and you look to God for that faith to make you and get you through this situation. So compare the one side to the other and not go back and say would have, could have, should have, but say for the future, what do you choose to do with your life and how do you choose to react? Do you choose to react with resilience and a positive situation and a positive mindset, positive behaviors? Or do you want to sit in your drama and your trauma, right? And your negative emotions, your negative words? It's a choice. And you can build on these characteristics, these traits that people that have resilience, that show resilience. You can learn those things. It's a process, it's a life experience. So just saying today, oh, I'm going to be resilient, it's a process. So give yourself some time and be patient with yourself. The best thing you can do when you're learning to be resilient is to be self aware. If you're not self aware to the situation, that you have a choice in these life circumstances, right? How are you going to be resilient and change your character, your coping skills, your competency, feeling a conviction of, yes, I am going to get through this and I am going to thrive through this rather than just survive? So think about that and then start practicing that, right? So you can go back, you can look at this podcast again, this workshop again, you can download it and go back and remind yourself of those traits. And where do you feel like you might be lacking a little bit that you can learn more, you can have more knowledge, you can practice coping skills. Those are things that you can practice, right? You can go out and learn those if you need to have a support group, if you need to go to a counselor, um, a life coach. You can learn more about coping skills to apply them to be resilient. So think about the difference between people that kind of fall apart and people that are resilient and that are victors in your life. Look at those people and look at the qualities that they have. And when they come up to a situation, what do they do? So they might be like a mentor to you that you see how they proceed in their life. And they're a good example for you. Another thing that resilient people have is great boundaries, all kinds of boundaries. Are you a yes person or are you able to say no? Mm-mm. You don't even have to give many people an idea of words about why you're not going to do it. When you say no, no should be good enough. And if they need an explanation, if you want to give an explanation, you can, but you don't have to. Now, if it's your boss, if it's a spouse, then maybe you better think about giving them an explanation. However, if it's somebody off the street, they come up and they say, "Will you buy this box of chocolates?" You can just politely say no. And they might push at you to buy that box of chocolates, or they may even bully you and say, come on, just, $5 for this or something, go without your latte coffee from Starbucks. If you're feeling like a victim to what they're saying, just say no and get out of that situation. Walk away, drive away, don't respond. You don't have to feed into that, right? It's a choice. It's your boundaries. Stay close to your boundaries. There are some times that we can kind of waver with those, but most of the times you have those solid boundaries that don't let people cross, right? And when they're important people in our lives, tell them that those are the boundaries because people won't know what your boundary is unless you tell them. You can't expect people to read your mind, and it's part of being resilient. So I think that's all I really wanted to say about boundaries and relationships with people and being resilient during this Zoom meeting. And if you'd like to learn some more, or if you'd like to find me, I'll tell you just a little bit more about me. Like I said in the beginning, I am a thriver from kidney disease, and now I have a good working kidney. And that doesn't mean my life is always going to be peaches and cream because I still have to be on medicines the rest of my life and go back and get attention. Just like your car needs maintenance. Well, so will that new kidney need some maintenance from now and again, right? So that's how I've learned to be resilient. And from that, I reinvented myself to be an author, a speaker, and a transformational life coach. So I can support you to learn more about being resilient or to help you and support you to facilitate you to be resilient in your life. And you can find me on my website at thecreativelifebydesign.com. You can even call me. You can call me on my business line, and that is 704 218 9885, or you can email me. And the email I'll give you is my business email, Beth at thecreativelifebydesign.com. So I'm so excited that you came here so I could share this information. And I want to tell you about some more conversations that are coming up in the near future. In March, which is coming right around the corner, on the 7th, I am going to be talking about living with disease or illness. Well, this is interesting. Well, surviving to thriving. We talked a little bit about this right now, but I'm going to talk about more about illness and disease and getting to the point where you feel like you're thriving, just rather than surviving it. I know that the breast cancer networking group talks about surviving breast cancer. And yes, if that's important to you, I support you in that. But how does it feel if you could say that you're thriving after breast cancer? To me, that feels more empowering. So that's the next conversation I'll have. And I do have a podcast coming up that I'll give you more information about. My friend Beth Jones is going to be talking about girls and athletic girls and how they can be confident by being athletic and also being resilient. So I'll let you know more about that next time that we speak. If you missed this conversation, I'm going to have another conversation at 7 p.m. tonight. Today is what? The 23rd of February at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And even though it's the same topic, you never know where the words are going to come and show up this time around. It could be a totally different conversation that I had here at noon. So if you want to get some more information on this, stop by again and we'll see you on Zoom at 7 p.m. And again, you need to drop a line, DM me, email me your email address so I can add you and send you the link and the passcode for the next Zoom. Have a great day, and I'll see you guys later, hopefully. Bye.